All right, this is the next episode of True Wrestling Fan Discussions. Today we're gonna be talking about the career of Ravishing Rick Rude in the WWF and his early career. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm Frank. Man, let's get into it. First, let me go off on all his accomplishments and championships that this man accrued between 1987 and 1994 in just a short time. The amount of titles that he won and the accolades he won were pretty damn impressive. You're talking about a three-time WCW International Champion, but to us, the World
The
Champion.
world champion. I don't care. He's a world champion.
Yes, one-time United States Champion. And he never technically
You never
lost
lost
it.
it.
It was
Yeah.
injury.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still running to this day.
It's like CM Punk never lost the title.
Oh, Lord. One time NWA World Tag Team Champion, the Mid-Atlantic version.
But yeah.
Former WWF Intercontinental Champion. Slammy Award winner for the Jesse Abadi Award. And WWE Hall of Fame Class of 2017. Accomplishments. Pro Wrestling Illustrated ranked him number 4 out of the top 500 in 1992. Also, he was the most hated wrestler of 1992, and he, for Wrestling Observer Newsletters, best heel in 1992. They gave him the most unimproved in 1993, which is not really an accomplishment, but
Not
you got to
really.
go with the bed. And this one I don't agree with. They also declared it the worst work match of the year in 1992 at Halloween Havoc versus Masahiro Chono. That was the one that was for the NWA title. They each picked a referee. He picked Harley Race. The other dude picked Sasaki. It was a clusterfuck from beginning to end. So I really don't agree with that being the worst match of 1992. But that's what they voted
We
on.
reviewed that one though, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. It was having the two referees. We knew from the get go it was gonna.
I'm sure there were worse. I'm sure there were worse matches that year.
Oh, I guarantee it. But in any event, we're gonna start off in 1986. He had returned to the Jim Crockett Promotions and joined Manny Fernandez and his manager Paul Jones in their rivalry, if I can speak today, with Wahoo McDaniel. They were known as the Awesome Twosome. Guess they really didn't have a little group there to come up with anything better. But I mean, for the time, whatever, Awesome Twosome. If it works for you, do it. I don't know. I've seen worse.
Rude was also from that Minneapolis area.
Mm-hmm.
He was classmates with Tom Zank, Nikita Koloff, Barry Darsow. I think he actually knew Bischoff. I think back in the days too, because they were from the same area. Remember, Rude was a bouncer also at the famous Grandma B's, where the Road Warriors were bouncers. And and in college, he did graduate college, a physical education degree, and he was a known badass and a known arm wrestler. He was a big arm wrestler.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Minnesota they're known for their wrestlers.
And Ed Sharkey. And trained by Ed Sharkey.
And two of the three wrestlers you mentioned is ones he had feuds with in WCW. So he knew them, he worked with them, got along with them. So on November 27th, 1986, at Starrcade Night of the Skywalkers, gotta love these names, Rick Rude, in his only pay-per-view at that time with them, lost to Wahoo McDaniel in an Indian strap match. And so
we're gonna review
it's coming.
Yeah.
When we get to Starrcade this year, it's 83 to 86.
Yep. So
get your cups of coffee out and your Red Bulls because we're gonna need them.
I'm looking forward to be honest with you. Not to get sidetracked, but I'm looking forward to watching that early NWA stuff because I didn't get.
I'm looking forward to the first one, Starrcade '83, because you had Piper, you had Valentine, you had Ray's Flair, so it looked pretty interesting. Yep. On November 30th, Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez defeated the Rock and Roll Express to become the NWA Tag Team Champions. And still to this day, I can't believe I'm mentioning them from then, and they're still wrestling now. It's just, wow. They're still doing the independents. I can't believe it.
Man, good for them.
Hey, if you can keep yourself in shape, wrestling is pretty much an ageless sport. There's no retirement at 40, like in baseball and all this stuff. If you keep yourself in shape, man, you can wrestle till you're 60 or 63. Ask Sting. Or ask Flair.
Oh, Jesus.
So, yeah, exactly. This began a feud with them that ended only when Rude left the promotion in WWF. Yeah, I can't talk today. WWF in 1987. Now, to explain the sudden departure, Jim Crockett Jr. Aired a pre-tape non-title match where the Express had beaten them and
Right.
claimed that Rude had been injured as a
Yeah.
result, so they never
They
technically lost
never
the
lost.
tag
They never lost the
titles.
belts. Interesting that he goes to WWF too because he actually was tag team very briefly with the Dingo Warrior, who would
Yes.
become the Ultimate Warrior, who we would have the famous feud with. He was actually
Oh yeah.
managed briefly by Percy Pringle, aka Paul Bearer. So it's interesting. All these guys worked with each other very, very early on in their careers, and then they went, to the big leagues.
Yep. And Percy Pringle, man, he worked with a lot of guys in
Yeah, he
their
was
up
around
and
for a
coming
while.
era.
Yeah,
Yes. And the first thing everybody thinks of when they hear that name is, oh, Paul Bearer.
yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, you can't ignore what he did
What he did early,
earlier
yeah.
on.
Hmm.
And what's funny is Rude and Fernandez, not only did they feud with the Rock and Roll Express and defend the tag titles against them in their feud, but they also had fights with the Road Warriors as well.
Hmm.
Of course, Road Warriors were never successful in getting the titles off of them, but that was cool to see. So in 1987, unofficially, Rude began wrestling at house shows in June of
Hmm.
'87, defeating opponents such as Scott Casey, Corporal Kirshner, Dusty Wolf, Lanny
Corporal Kirsten,
Poffo.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
He was the
And the
replacement
only
for
real
Sergeant
name I like
Slaughter.
on that list is
For those that don't know,
the
he
only
was the
name I like
replacement
on
for
that list
Sergeant
is
Slaughter.
Lanny. The what now?
He was the replacement for Sergeant Slaughter, basically. When Sergeant Slaughter
That ain't
left,
saying, that ain't saying much.
the poor man Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah, wish list.
So,
So his official became on July 15th, 1987 on Superstars. Rick Rude made his official debut as the newest member of the Heenan family
right.
because he teamed with Hercules and King Harley Race. I had to remember that for a minute. To defeat Jerry Allen, Mario Mancini, and Ricky Hunter, three primetime
Yeah.
athletes, jobbers.
Well, that was back in the days when, we had like Wrestling Challenge and stuff like that, or even besides the house shows where superstars of wrestling, you get these jobber matches,
I
squash matches
always
and
loved
stuff.
if you actually got let's say a
You
Rick
got lucky.
Rude versus Bret Hart one half
Sometimes it
hour
would
kind of a show.
happen,
I'm like,
yes. And,
oh, this is the
oh, this is
best
amazing,
match.
yeah. And we never saw Hogan on
Yeah, because
Superstars. Hardly ever. Hogan would
hardly
pop
ever,
up,
and
yeah.
maybe wrestled less than a handful of
Yeah.
times on there if you're lucky.
Right. But when he showed up, I
But
was
he
like,
would
oh,
show up.
no, it's Hogan, man. It's Hogan. I used to go crazy. Me and my brother used to, like, we were such big Hulkamaniacs back in the day. But so,
Everybody was until you find out later on how he
yeah,
was.
well, it doesn't work for me,
But
brother.
growing up,
Yeah.
yes, we all were.
But it's funny
But
that he joins the Heenan family, but at first he didn't even like Bobby Heenan. Like, I don't
no, he
think
didn't.
not that he didn't like him personally, but he felt like he didn't need a manager that was going to take away from his character. But it actually did enhance his character.
It did. And he joins the Heenan family, and of course, one comes in, one's got to go.
Oh yeah,
So Mr. Wonderful Paul
yeah.
Orndorff is
He
kicked
was
out for the second
right.
time.
I call him the giant, aka Big Show of the Heenan family, because the Giant was in the NWO, Big Show multiple times and got kicked out
You
multiple
think
times.
Orndorff would have learned his lesson, or at least Vince on storylines go, all right, I want to take you out. Okay, now I want to put you back in.
Yeah,
All right, I want to take you out
I don't
again.
know. Orndorff was underrated though. His feud with Hogan is
It really
very,
was.
very, very underrated. It's forgotten. People focus a lot on Andre. Don't get me wrong. Andre was a great feud, but the Orndorff feud was amazing.
That classic steel cage match
Oh
was
yeah,
was
oh
was
yeah.
great.
It was real heat because
But
those guys were from Florida.
Orndorff, I mean, yeah, Orndorff at least got his accolades and his championships in WCW,
Hmm.
where in WWF he really could have been one of their top guys. And his career was not over when he left. And I mean,
He
he
was,
still went for
yeah.
years in WCW.
That physically he wasn't the same. He had that
But
bad neck injury, so.
yeah, he had lost a step or two, but he could still deliver. So pretty much this was Rude's first feud in WWF was Orndorff. Their first match was actually on September 12th at a house show, which ended in a double countout, which usually did happen back then. 1 week later, Rude actually then defeated Paul Orndorff. The feud culminated on November 24th at Madison Square Garden, where Rude defeated Orndorff 2 days before the Survivor Series. And for anybody that doesn't know or hasn't seen it, at the Survivor Series, Rude's team of Butch Reed, Andre, Bundy, one-man gang, which was a phenomenal team. You wouldn't see something like this, in my opinion, until
Yeah.
2003 when he assembled Brock Lesnar's team. They were victorious over Hogan, Bigelow, Morocco, Patera, and Orndorff when Bigelow was left to go out on his own. I think it was a 3-on-1 at that point because Hogan
Yeah.
was out.
Hogan was out of there. Yeah.
So, but it was good to see Bigelow in there, but not against them boys. No, sorry. So Rude started off 1987 pretty good, ended it pretty good. So 1988, he started off with a bang. He began 1998 by challenging Hulk Hogan for the WWF title on January 9th at the Boston Garden, but failed
Yeah.
to win the title.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's where it stopped for him. That was
Yeah.
at the time the high point he would get to.
But this is not stuff that we really got to see though. Like it wasn't
No,
a main program, that was going on. This was like on house shows and stuff like that. And so that's cool that he did go up against Hogan and you get
I
the
would have
feeling
loved to
from
see it on a pay-per-view.
and you get the feeling from things that you heard that Hogan didn't want to work with him because but it's according
That's
to
what I've heard. Yeah,
Flair, Bischoff. Um, there has to be some truth to it because Rude was one of the top heels in the company. So why would he not have a program with
exactly.
Hogan unless Hogan didn't want to work with him?
I
So
believe that when Hogan got signed to WCW, and all of a sudden, they had the two titles, and
right,
he's mouthing off one title, one champion, and conveniently, when Rude was the champion, despite right before the injury, because it was like karma that this happened, he didn't want to face him for the title, so he made sure it would
well,
come. He wanted it off of him,
they had the
and then it became
unification.
Flair and Sting.
And they had the unification for one
Yeah,
belt. He gets injured unfortunately, so we're not really sure. But from what I've seen in interviews, is apparently he had like a list of guys that he wanted to work with in WCW, and Rude wasn't on that list.
of course not. That's when I believe he had an issue with
So it
him
makes sense.
because
Yeah,
he
you put
wouldn't work
everything
with him
together.
again in WWF.
It didn't work for him.
Yeah, a lot of things didn't work for him. So, but in any event, um, following that, at WrestleMania 4, he fought Jake the Snake Roberts in the first round of the championship tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately,
WrestleMania 4.
ended in a draw, and they were both eliminated. So that
It was kind of a stinker of a match too, though.
It really was.
It was a very slow match. It was like they were kind of trying to buy time just to get to the time limit for it to be a draw.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like.
It really did feel like that.
Which is a shame because they're great wrestlers.
It is. And what came out of this was a Ravishing Rick Rude, Jake the Snake Roberts feud.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Going forward, right after this, he on what was it, April 22nd, 1988. They aired it April 30th, Saturday Night Main Event, the 16th one that they did. He main evented that one and beat Coco Beware in one of his rare Saturday Night Main Event victories. This was the only one he ever main evented. He was on 6 of them. And so, and it didn't make any sense because, this was known during WWF. Whoever he was feuding with really didn't fight them, except on the last one. I think it was 2 of them. He actually fought them during the feud.
Right. Yeah.
Jake and Warrior.
Right.
Because, and I'll get to it in a minute on the other one on why it didn't make any sense. So following, this with the feud with Jake Roberts, in the feud, Rude he started at this point with the robe, the fat, out of shape, sweat hogs, and all this stuff.
He was picking girls out of the crowd. Yeah.
Kiss. So in this feud,
what did he say? Shut the music.
Tried to get Roberts's yes. Oh, cut the music.
Cut the music.
What I'd like to have now is for all you fat, out of shape, and wherever he was, Pittsburgh, Pissants, or whatever it made sense, keep the noise down. I love the Sweat Hogs one.
Oh, God.
So in all the video games now that they have him in, they have that ad-libbed in there, and it's so awesome. And I something about I like the character when he did that even more to show how arrogant he was. Like, I'm better than you, and I'm going to prove it. So he tries to get Roberts' real-life wife, Cheryl, to participate. Little did he know, and Heenan didn't know, that this was Jake's real-life wife.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Heenan had chose her. So after she rejected him and revealed that who she was, there to see. Rude got angry after she slapped him, and according to Jake, busted Rude's eardrum. Grabbed her wrist and berated her on the microphone when Roberts came out to make the save.
Mm-hmm.
So now we got a real intensified feud going on here. A few days later, on September 10th, Rude retaliated when he came to the ring with the likeness of Cheryl stenciled on his tights.
That was great stuff.
Came out, ripped them off, and we see if you watch it on TV, they distorted it. Luckily, he had a G-string on in the crowd. Oh, my God. So from there on out, he would wear 2 sets of tights, just in case this happened again. Because during the middle of '88, is when he started doing it, and this didn't make any sense to me at SummerSlam. When you're in a feud with Jake,
Right.
Why aren't you fighting him at SummerSlam? Instead, he's fighting the Junkyard Dog.
Yeah.
During the match, pulls the tights down to reveal the Cheryl Roberts tights. Jake comes down and gets JYD disqualified. And he's got he said, cross my heart, I didn't mean to do it. Because it looked like JYD was going to whack him. And honestly, it was well-deserved.
Yeah, I mean.
You came down, you interfered in my match, I lost. He gets to win his purse money, I'm getting spot.
Yeah.
Really, that match should have been Rude versus Jake. Because unless you watched that one Saturday night main event that they had, you really never saw this feud one-on-one. So, unfortunately. And then October 24th, Rude lost to Roberts and I like this little stipulation, Rude Awakening versus the DDT match.
That was pretty cool.
That was something that was cool. Of course, the feud came to a conclusion at Survivor Series when, Rude actually pinned Roberts pinned Rude following the DDT, which if that's culminating the feud, this is not a one-on-one match. You just eliminated him from a Survivor Series match. And the match was Roberts, Duggan, Patera, and Casey and Santana versus Andre, Rude, Bravo, Perfect, and Race. So once again, Rude's on a pretty damn good team. And of course, Rude's team was victorious when Perfect and Bravo were the survivors. One final match came out of this Saturday night main event, number 17. It was done October 25th, '88, but it was aired right after the Survivor Series, which Jake Roberts beats Rick Rude by disqualification. And that one, I believe, was when Andre came out.
Yeah, because Jake was going into the feud with Andre. So, I mean, at least they got a Saturday night's main event out of it, but I mean, I would have liked to have seen that on pay-per-view.
Not even clean.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that match on pay-per-view.
SummerSlam, I would have loved to see.
It was a good feud. It was a really good feud. So I don't know why.
That stipulation they put on a house show, I would have loved to see on
yeah,
SummerSlam.
that would have been great. Yeah, that would have been great. But
so 1989, he needs something to do. Well, why not go to the Royal Rumble and challenge the Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior, to a pose down?
Remember, he was the winner of the Jesse the Body Ventura Award. Because Jesse got to keep reminding us.
Hey, that's the winner of the Jesse Abadi Award, Tony. He even did it in WCW when they were at the brief time that Tony and Jesse were
there.
And I think he told Jim Ross too.
Oh,
every time Rude come out, he made sure he told you. Well, why not? He had like the perfect physique. So that pose down at Royal Rumble ended when he attacked Warrior with the metal pose bar because he's always trying to get that workout in.
First, it was Bobby Heenan that was sprayed the baby oil in Warrior's eyes. Warrior sold it, and he was like, he keeps yelling and posing, completely no sells the baby oil, and then Rude destroys him.
Oh man, I don't know if he missed the cue on that or
I think he was just so fired up, man. He just forgot.
I think so.
He just forgot, yeah.
So following this, now he's in a feud with the Intercontinental Champion. So it's Saturday Night Main Event number 20, which was February 16th, 1989. They aired it almost a month later. He's facing Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Totally out of left field considering you're feuding with the Intercontinental Champion.
Not only that, go ahead.
He loses by disqualification.
Yeah, so and they did the same thing to Perfect, man. Perfect goes is about to win the IC championship, and he loses the Beefcake. I'm like, I don't understand.
WrestleMania 6, when that should have been the other way around.
Right, and then he wins the IC title right after that. I don't get it.
He loses his undefeated streak.
Right.
But then wins the tournament for the title.
I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. To Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Oh. At WrestleMania 5, with the help of Bobby Heenan, I hated this. Rick
Mm.
Rude defeats the Ultimate
He
Warrior
held it.
and
He held
becomes
the
the
feet
Intercontinental
down.
Champion.
Held the feet down. I don't. Why did Warrior have?
A suplex from the apron, and Heenan holds his foot.
You know what's funny, man? I was watching this and I was so angry and I was yelling at the TV. And I remember it was my uncle. It was my uncle by marriage. I was at his house and his mother was there. And his mother was just laughing. She couldn't understand why I was so angry that the Ultimate Warrior lost. I was like, you don't get it. You just don't
Yeah,
get
if he's gonna lose, fine.
it.
But like this,
And he had those black boots on. I'm like, why did he have that's like, I never seen Warrior with black boots up. Only that he had black boots on, I think, that night.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, that was probably bad luck.
I
But
know
he's nice.
Bobby Heenan got his ass kicked, so and then had to go into his match with
Right.
hurt ribs.
But he's the IC
But
champion now.
yes, he is. So Rude remained champion, but he did have his first televised title defense. That's on Saturday Night Main Event
Mm-hmm.
21, April 25th, 1989. They aired it again a month later in May 27th, I believe. And he loses by countout, defending the title against King Duggan because Haku had come down. No. Because, Haku had just lost the crown to Duggan.
Right. Yeah.
So Duggan beats Rude by way of countout.
It's King Duggan.
King Duggan. And, okay, so now your first title defense, you lost again. You're facing a guy you're not feuding with again. Okay, this is fine. So he remained champion until SummerSlam, where at the event Rude lost the title. You could say it was to Roddy because of Roddy Piper.
Mooning him, right?
Yeah, and then Rude gets up on the second turnbuckle yelling at him, and then Warrior back suplexes him, gets the pin. He's the champion.
And Warrior's IC champion again. I mean, it's worth mentioning though, like the Warrior and Rude always had great matches.
Oh, he does, definitely.
Rude did a great job at making the Warrior look really, really good, making him look strong and selling the moves because Rude was a bumping machine, a lot like Mr. Perfect. The bumps he would take, he would make you look like $1 million. So I always enjoyed their feud.
He always sold to you that my back is killing me.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Can't and then he would try to do the swerve and he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then of course the common, Jesse Ventura, the ladies are going to be disappointed. He can't do this for them. Oh God. So as a result of this, now Rude is going into a program with Roddy Piper, who had just returned back to the WWF. At the Survivor Series. Okay?
No, and spoiler alert, like they never have like a good pay-per-view blow off, man. Piper and Rude are the best ever. I was happy about this.
I said this WrestleMania 6 should have been do it there because you're starting a program that you're going into a 4-on-4
right
battle with, so you're not really going to get your hands on them. If you're lucky, you will. And so it was Rude Perfect, and the Fabulous Rougeos versus Rowdy's, Piper, Snooker, and the Bushwhackers. During the match, both men brawled and got a double count out. They eliminated each other. And once again, Mr. Perfect wins as sole survivor. Sensing a theme here. So now Rude fought Piper many times between August and December, including a classic steel cage match on December 28th at Madison Square Garden, losing but he lost the majority of the matches to him. So, unfortunately. So that was pretty much over and done with at that point. So going into 1990 now, at the Royal Rumble, Rude had entered number 28 and was part of the final four in the ring at that event until he was eliminated. Hogan would go on to win his first Rumble, which didn't make any sense that you have the WWF champion in the Royal Rumble, but that was still a growing process until they realized, this is what we're going to offer, and so on and so forth. Following that, Saturday Night Main Event number 25, done right after New Year's on January 3rd, aired on the 27th. Dusty Rhodes beats Ravishing Rick Rude. Not doing too good on the
hell's going on, man?
I don't know. Because after the Rumble, for whatever reason, Rude began a brief feud with Jimmy Superfly Snuka. And at WrestleMania 6, Rude was victorious over him.
At least he won.
I'm like, yeah. But I'm not, even back then when I saw it, I'm like, why is he fighting him?
Yeah, it was just to give him something.
because WrestleMania 6 felt like there was a lot of matches just like, okay, you and you
Thrown
get out
together,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Like Coco Beware and Rick Martel. Where'd that come from?
Nobody cared.
Hercules and Earthquake. Where'd that come from? We did have some feuds on there,
Right, yeah, yeah.
but it was a lot of thrown together stuff. But after WrestleMania, Rude finally woke up. He focused his attention back on the champion, WWF champion, the Ultimate Warrior. He did the training. He cut his hair.
We took some time off.
Yeah,
some time
to do
off.
all this. He got bigger.
Training, yeah.
How'd you put it when we talked about it before? He did like the Rocky type style training.
It was a Rocky training, yeah. They had the vignettes with him and Bobby Heenan, like he was boxing and everything. And Rude apparently
he's doing it in the sweats.
Yeah, yeah. Rude was a fan of Rocky too. And then SummerSlam ends up being in Philadelphia. I believe it's in Philadelphia.
Man. Yeah. That was cool. And then now this is the only Saturday night main event he did, besides Jake, that made sense. On July 16th, a Saturday night main event number 27. Rick Rude, he loses the Ultimate Warrior by disqualification in the WWE Championship match after Bobby Heenan got involved.
Mm-hmm.
But we knew this wasn't going to be the end of it.
Yeah, that sets up
because they're going to be one half of the main event at SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
And so at SummerSlam on August 27th, Rude fought Warrior. Unfortunately, in the steel cage, Warrior escaped the cage and won the match, but it was one hell of a.
It was a great match. It was very entertaining. Yeah, definitely, and it was a good build up.
Now, yeah, great build up for the few months.
Yeah.
Oh God,
it was such good stuff, man.
It was, and Rude showed that look, I can be in the main event. Yeah. I can go with the WWF champion. I need my shot.
And it was I like the whole selling point was he's like, I'm the only man that pinned the Ultimate Warrior. They did pin him with Bobby Heenan's help.
Bobby Heenan got the assist. Sorry, Rude.
But it was a good storyline.
Rest in peace.
It was a good storyline. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So where do we go from here? Is he going to continue the feud and get the title? No, we're going to put him in a feud with the Big Boss Man, where this all started over Bobby Heenan started talking smack about Big Boss Man's mom. And of course, Rude later backed up the statements and then called out the Big Boss Man. I did not like this feud. I liked Bobby Heenan Big Boss Man feud, where Boss Man would go through the Heenan family, but I could not see Rude and Boss Man.
But it never even goes anywhere because he was supposed to be in the Survivor
Series. No, they only had one match between each other.
But he was supposed to be on that Survivor Series team, but he walks out, and there's a whole dispute because Rude had some sort of a shoulder injury.
Oh yeah, there's two sides to it.
I guess they were paying him some money, but they were still advertising him on these house shows, and he felt like, well, you're still advertising on these house shows. People are buying these tickets to come to these house shows. You should still pay me whatever I was supposed to get paid for those house shows, not a less amount. And there was
not to mention he was unhappy about the dispute of I was here and now I'm here.
Yeah, so eventually Rude basically kind of quits, and eventually somewhere along the way they end up releasing him from the contract. They let him out of it.
And the other side of the story, I don't know if you heard this one, that Vince thought Rude wasn't muscular enough and demanded that Rude take more steroids if he wanted to keep his job. I don't know about that, but then again, that's steroid era. So
I don't think he said you need to do more steroids. Maybe he might have insinuated by saying you need to get bigger. I don't know, but
probably.
Yeah. But
either way, if it's true, Rude obviously disagreed and left the company. But I would say it was more along the lines of unhappy with the feuds that he's now in.
Yeah, money.
Yeah, where he was. He considers himself a top tier talent.
Mm-hmm.
And, for that, he misses Survivor Series. The storyline was he was suspended for what he said about his mother.
Right.
And like I said, the only singles match him and Boss Man had was on October 26th on a house show in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So it never went anywhere. Yeah. And after Survivor Series, we pretty much never heard his name again.
Yeah.
And that's when Boss Man feuded with Bobby Heenan and the Heenan family.
Right. All right. Next up, we're going to be covering his WCW career. So you guys tune in for that. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care.